On the evening of November 24, 1971, a man in a dark suit in sunglasses walked up to the counter at Portland International Airport and bought a one-way ticket to Seattle. He gave his name as Dan Cooper. He was calm, unremarkable, the kind of man nobody would look at twice. He carried a black attaché case, took his seat, 18C, near the rear of the plane, and ordered a bourbon and soda while the aircraft taxied for takeoff. Nothing about him suggested what was about to happen. Within the hour, he would pull off the only unsolved hijacking in American aviation history, and then disappear so completely that 50 years of investigation, thousands of leads, and the full weight of the FBI would never find him. This is the story of D.B. Cooper. Flight 305 was a Boeing 727, a short hop from Portland to Seattle carrying just 36 passengers. Shortly after takeoff, the man in seat 18C passed a note to a flight attendant named Florence Schaffner. She assumed it was a phone number, the kind of thing a bored businessman might slide across to a stranger. She slipped it into her pocket without reading it. He leaned toward her. "Miss," he said quietly, "you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." She opened it. The words were simple and precise. He had a bomb in his briefcase. He wanted her to sit next to him. When she did, he opened the case just enough for her to see wires, a battery, and red cylindrical sticks packed in neat rows. Whether it was real or not, it looked real enough. And in that moment, in a pressurized aluminum tube 7,000 feet in the air, that was all that mattered. His demands were specific: $200,000 in cash, 4 parachutes, and a fuel truck waiting on the tarmac in Seattle. No theatrics, no shouting, no wild threats. He spoke like a man reading a checklist. The crew relayed his demands to the ground, and while authorities scrambled to assemble everything he'd asked for, the plane was ordered into a holding pattern over Puget Sound. For nearly 2 hours, Flight 305 circled the water, an ordinary commercial jet carrying an extraordinary secret, while below, the FBI worked frantically to meet the deadline of a man who had, so far, given away almost nothing about himself. When the plane finally landed in Seattle, Cooper allowed the passengers to leave. 36 people walked off that aircraft into the arms of federal agents, and every one of them told investigators the same thing. He never raised his voice. He never seemed nervous. He tipped the flight attendant. He was, by every account, polite. The money arrived in a bag. $20 bills, 10,000 of them, each one serial numbered and photographed beforehand, a detail that would matter enormously in the years to come. The parachutes arrived too, military-issue rigs pulled from a local skydiving school. Cooper inspected them personally, checking the rigging with the eye of someone who understood exactly what he was looking at. This was not a man improvising. This was a man who had planned. With the ground crew gone and the cabin empty except for the pilots, a flight engineer, and one remaining attendant, Cooper gave his final instruction. Take off again. Fly toward Reno. Keep the aircraft under 10,000 feet, keep the flaps down and the landing gear extended, a configuration that would slow the plane and make it difficult to maneuver, but that also made something else possible, something almost nobody expected. At around 8 p.m., somewhere over the dense, unforgiving forest of southwestern Washington, Cooper ordered the crew to stay in the cockpit and not come out. Then he lowered the aircraft's rear stairway, the same built-in staircase used for boarding passengers on the tarmac, out into the open night sky. The crew felt the pressure in the cabin shift. A red warning light blinked on the console, indicating the aft door was open. It was the only sign they had that anything had changed. Somewhere over that black expanse of timber and rain, with $200,000 strapped to his body and a parachute on his back, D.B. Cooper stepped out of the aircraft and into the night. He was never seen again. The plane landed safely, the crew was unharmed, and within hours, the FBI launched what would become one of the largest manhunts in its history, codenamed Norjack. Investigators pored over the flight path, calculating wind speed, altitude, and drop trajectory, trying to pinpoint exactly where a man might have landed after leaping from a commercial jet at night in a rainstorm over some of the most rugged terrain in the Pacific Northwest. What they found, or rather didn't find, only deepened the mystery. No body, no parachute, no sign of a landing, successful or fatal. Search teams combed the forests of southwestern Washington for weeks. Helicopters swept the tree line. Ground teams pushed through dense timber and steep ravines. Nothing surfaced. It was as if the man had simply dissolved into the night air.
Theories multiplied almost immediately. Some investigators believed Cooper never survived the jump at all, that he was an inexperienced skydiver who leaped into freezing rain, high winds, and 40-degree temperatures without any real understanding of what awaited him below, and that his body simply lay undiscovered somewhere in the wilderness, claimed by the terrain itself. Others believed he'd planned meticulously enough to walk away clean, vanishing into a new identity with a fortune in cash and decades of head start. For years, the case produced tantalizing fragments, but never resolution. In 1980, a young boy vacationing with his family on the banks of the Columbia River was digging in the sand when his shovel hit something rotten. It was a bundle of $20 bills, waterlogged, crumbling to the touch, bound by rubber bands that had long since fossilized. When the FBI checked the serial numbers, their hearts sank. They matched. It was the single hardest piece of physical evidence the case would ever produce, proof that at least some of the money had ended up in the river system, likely carried there by current and time. But it explained nothing. It didn't confirm whether Cooper survived. It didn't say where he'd gone. It only deepened the puzzle, a scrap of certainty inside decades of speculation. Suspects came and went by the hundreds: former paratroopers, disgruntled airline employees, men who bore a resemblance to the composite sketch and had histories that seemed to almost fit. Some confessed on their deathbeds, others were named by relatives, convinced they'd stumbled onto the truth. Every lead was investigated. Every lead eventually collapsed under the weight of missing evidence. By 2016, after 45 years and thousands of pursued leads, the FBI formally suspended active investigation into the case, not because they'd solved it, but because they'd exhausted what they could do with it. The physical evidence was too thin. The trail had gone cold decades earlier. What remained was a case file, a composite sketch of a calm man in a dark suit, and a mystery that refused to close. What makes the story endure isn't just the crime itself. Hijackings, even bold ones, aren't rare in the history of aviation. What makes Cooper different is the void he left behind. No name, no face beyond an artist's rendering, no confirmed fate. A man appeared out of nowhere, executed a plan with total composure, and then stepped backward into the same nowhere he came from, taking every answer with him. Somewhere in the mountains of southwestern Washington, or perhaps nowhere at all, the truth about D.B. Cooper remains buried. Not in a file, not in a witness statement, but in the one place the FBI could never search: the mind of a man who for one night in 1971 was the calmest person on an aircraft in crisis, and who understood, better than anyone chasing him, that the surest way to disappear is to give the world nothing to hold on to. If you liked the video, drop a like to let us know. Consider subscribing so that you get notified of our next video. See you in the next one.